Amazon doesn't care about your budget. It doesn't care about the effort you put into your ads, nor does it care about our KDP dreams. What it does care about is putting your book um, to the right people at the right time, and whether your book is worthy of being taken off the digital Amazon shelf. Now, if you're someone that's been struggling with ads, then coming from someone that's experimented with ads for a while, I want to walk you through exactly how Amazon ads actually work, and how they differ from other traditional channels, and also how you can interpret that data to ultimately make it work for yourself so you can start seeing success with your ads. Now, if that interests you, then I hope you stay tuned whilst we go through it. Okay, great. So, firstly, we need to understand that Amazon doesn't work in other marketing traditional ways. It doesn't mimic the typical funnel that we would normally be used to when we run ads. Most people, when they run ads, they're used to this funnel that you can see here, where you have very cold leads, and you ultimately want to warm them up to ultimately get them to become customers. You're basically moving people from that upper funnel all the way to the lower funnel. And it's having to take people across that journey from awareness to the consideration point to ultimately retargeting them when they're showing high intent to buy. However, Amazon ads don't work that way. You don't need to nurture people across this funnel to get them to be warmed up to ultimately buy a product. The great thing about Amazon is that actually people are already warmed up. You don't need to educate them about what your product or your book is about in order to capture them to ultimately go on to buy your book. So, what does Amazon actually replace funnels with? So, as you can see here, um, Amazon likes to work in a way where they want to ultimately only show your book if it will make them money. Um, they basically have a platform where people are already um, showing high intent to buy. They have a search engine and people are in there ready to shop, ready to purchase, searching for whatever it is they're looking for. And so Amazon's ads work in this way. The ad basically for our Amazon books works as a shelf placement. So we're basically competing for space on that shelf. The impression is visibility. It's how many people who are searching for that thing get to see our book on that shelf. And then clicks is basically a customer picking up that book. And then the sale is the checkout. So you basically want to continue to show people to show Amazon, sorry, that your book is worthy of being shown. And if it is, it will continue to show impressions. If not, it will stay invisible. So how does the kind of like ads look like on the Amazon page? As you can see here, when you search in for example, a diet cookbook, at the top here you can see these books and they have sponsored underneath it. These are sponsored product ad placements that are being shown on the first page. So as you can see, it's very seamlessly fitting into the first page of when someone when someone searches for the book, along with all of the organic ranking books, which you hope to ultimately achieve once you run ads for a while. But you need to run ads for a while and for those ads to work and for you to show Amazon that your book makes them money to also organically rank on the first page, which is where the ads ultimately um ultimately you become less reliant, sorry, on ads making you money. And the whole thing about the ads is to, yeah, make money, but not necessarily. It's to get your book on ranked on first page, to show that Amazon you're worthy of showing up organically, because the organic sales is where all of the money is really made. So, what Amazon ads actually are, they basically work on intent interception. So, people come with buying intent already informed. So, your job is to not persuade people from scratch, is to show up at the right time, because people are already searching on Amazon. Um, they're searching for that search term. They want they appear closest to purchase. So you just need to be ready to catch people when they're ready to act. Um, and that is the great thing about Amazon ads, is being able to do that. So, for example, if we were searching for a high protein cookbook, this would be following and mimicking a normal customer journey. You would maybe search for the high protein cookbook, and maybe why do you want it for weight loss? Because customers always put their pain point. Um, so hopefully you would have done your research and everything, and now you would have found this before, and you would have made, based on if there's high demand and you feel like you can compete, you would have created a book. And your aim would be to obviously show up on this page. As you can see, you have organic ranking books, and then you can see there's been some with the sponsored ads. So you would want to show up, and definitely for this keyword. And it's just showing that you want to obviously have a good enough bid strategy to have enough impressions and obviously to show up higher on that page, and then a good enough book that ultimately gets clicks and sales, in order for Amazon to keep rewarding you. And with time also, these things, your ads can become cheaper, once you show Amazon that it's worth having your book there. So, how would you set up ads in the beginning? Now, there's so much information online, but if you're someone starting out, and also most people starting out don't have the budget for it, so I would say to focus on one campaign, and that would be a sponsored product campaign. You would do one targeting type, so there's different types you can do by product. So, put different similar products that you'd want your book to show up against, or you would do it by keyword, and that's the best for conversions, which is what people search in the engine, and then your book showing up as shown before. And you'd want to do your targeting in layers. So, for example, how layers work is, for example, if you had a cookbook for dog owners, the general niche would be dog food cookbook. The sub niche would be what type of food it is that cookbook's about. So that would be homemade dog food cookbook. And then the target audience is the type of people this is specifically for, and you may have niched it down for small dog owners. Now you want to keep it super super relevant, because the more unrelevant things are, the more you are kind of getting punished by Amazon as they show up your book to those people searching those keywords, and people don't buy it. So you want to make sure it's super relevant. But in this category, as we start out, to understand what, with time, we can gather data to understand the best variations of the keywords that work for us, that drive the most traffic and also the most sales. So, how would this look like? This is the Amazon platform. You would select sponsored products, and you would wait for it to load. As you can see, it's a little bit slow. And then you would select manual. You would select your book. I've just scrolled past that because you could see all my book catalogs, but you would select the book first. You would select manual targeting, keyword targeting. Then, once it loads, um, it can be a bit slow type. It's being a bit slow today. You want to select only broad. Why? Because when we're starting out, we want to make sure that we are not boxing ourselves in the beginning, and allowing ourselves to gather data to understand the best keywords. And then obviously with time, we would start to select phrase and exact, but that's only once we had the data to prove that those keywords are the best performing keywords. But for now, we include our relevant layered keywords, and within each layer, the layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, you might have different variations, like a few for each. You should only have a maximum, I feel like, of 10 to 15 in your first campaign, um to, gather data in the beginning and to make sure that it's super relevant, because you don't want Amazon to also punish your book. You want it to only show up to people that are willing to buy your book, to prove to Amazon that your book is worthy of being shown. And then with time, maybe we could expand more keywords, but keep it super relevant. When you're setting it up, you want to make sure that you are doing the different layers. So I would set it up in this way, where the layer one, which is the broader niche, you want to start off with a 70 cents bidding. Then you want to select your layer two, which is the sub niche. And here it would be high protein cookbook. You want to do 80 cents. And these are just starting points of how you want to set up your ad. Next, it would be the third layer, which is for the target audience, so people that want to do it for weight loss, and you would put that at 90 cents. And then if you have a few variations for the others, you would include that at the same bidding. And then ultimately, you want to go on and you can select between fixed bids and dynamic bids down only. Now, I have tested doing both, but I feel I don't see any real difference in performance. So ultimately, I would always advise picking dynamic bids down only, because you ultimately do save some money, as Amazon will naturally lower your bids if it's less likely to convert into a sale. Then after that, you would basically want to set up your campaign name. Now, if you're starting out, you want to make sure you do this correctly from the get-go, because you may have many ads you run, different types you may want to test with, along as well as loads of different books you run ads for. So the way I would set up the ads is so that you can easily understand what they were when you ran them. So when you're searching for it, it just has that correct naming convention that all your ads follow. So I would do the keyword or the name of your title as condensed as possible. Then I would do your pen name and an underscore. I would do the type of ad it is, so it would be a broad ad with broad keywords. You could specify that as a sponsored product, because you may try sponsored brand once, or a video or a display ad. Then I would do the date along with the daily budget, whatever suits your needs, but as long as you have a daily budget and a monthly budget that you can continue with consistently. And then I would launch the ad. Now we would go into how you would then, with time. So I would set that up, wait 3 days, understand the data, and based on that, you need to increase your bid by 5% if you're not seeing any impressions, as well as if you're seeing a lot of impressions, you can also lower your bid. And I would just have a look at this in the first 30 days. It's really about gathering that data. So I would always look back at your campaign every 3 days to understand. The first things first is about impressions. Before you gather anything else, you need to make sure that you're bidding enough so that you can get seen for those keywords. However, if you are getting high impressions and you're not getting any clicks or any sales, then you need to, I think, look at your cover and your reviews, because ultimately your book is being shown to people, but they're choosing to not click it on that page. As we saw previously, when you see those sponsored product ads, they show up, but then you're competing against all these other books. It's not then about it being an ad problem, because impressions are there. It's about you not having a cover that can compete against other books. So you need to be truthful with yourself. Even if you like your cover, you need to understand, would your customer understand and be attracted to that against others? Is it pointing out the main kind of selling points that it needs to, and touching on the main pain points that the customer wants, as well as making sure it's cohesive and it stands out, and the design as well, for it to be seen. We also know that most people browse on their mobile. Can it be seen, and can it stand out on that device? And then on top of that, you need to see the reviews. So these are all things you need to obviously work on before you do ads, but ads help us understand, and sometimes they do point out problems faster. So maybe we thought we had those covered, but the ads kind of show up and just um tell it how it is. And ultimately, if your reviews aren't there and you have much lower reviews than the others, you need to make sure you continue gathering those. And I will share those tools at the end. But like with Gemsy or Book Bounty, you need to make sure you're getting those gems or those bounties to acquire reviews so that you can have healthy amount of reviews that compete with the competitors for your book. Here is basically a my dashboard. I've just obviously blurred out like the keywords and the campaign name, but here you can see the different types of metrics that you'll be looking at constantly, from impressions to click through rate to ACOS, which is basically dividing your spend by sales attribute to your ads. In the beginning, your ACOS will not be something that you need to worry about. It won't be efficient. But with time, you want to obviously ensure that your ACOS is lowering. And I think an ACOS of um, 40 or less is always healthy, because ultimately, with time, you want to make sure that you are being able to have your book rank organically, which would offset the spend that you have with ads, which is basically our goal. What does the metric mean? So basically, the three things that we want to care about is click through rate, especially at the beginning. Is my book clickable? It's basically what the click through rate tells you. And the higher the click through rate, great. But lower, anything would say, if I go back here to click through rate, anything lower than, a 0.5, I would say is something where you need to start asking yourself, do I need to change something about my cover or review? Do I need to go back and actually look again at the competitors? Am I being um, truthful with myself that I actually have a cover that can compete with those books, along with have I actually been able to acquire enough reviews for my book? Do I need to focus on those things before uh feeling defeated about whether my book is actually selling or not? You need to focus on those stuff. The cost per click, the CPC, is how expensive traffic is. So if you're finding that you are having a cost per click that is um, higher than maybe you can afford, then you need to obviously work out whether that keyword is actually relevant or not, whether that keyword is too competitive, and whether you have the ability to actually lower the bids based on if you're getting enough impressions for it. The ACOS, like we just saw, is um, how much your spend divided by your sales. So it basically tells you, is your book profitable? Are your ads profitable? And how you could actually optimize that is through your price. Do you feel like you have room to increase your price now? Did you start off your launch with a lower price? Are you able to maybe now, because you've got enough reviews and sales and you've shown, could you up your price to maybe offset that ACOS? And then also, again, it helps you understand ACOS helps you to understand your conversion. It helps you maybe to look back, and also it gives you a signal as to whether you do have the reviews and a competing cover. So those are things you need to obviously check again, and that's a signal for that. So combined, kind of what could it be interpreted as, and what would you then want to look at? So to just put it as simply as possible, um, if you have a high click through rate, that's great. But if you have a high ACOS, um, it's also showing that it's not converting. So it's showing that people are clicking through it. Um, they're clicking through the cover, but then once they go onto the page, they are bouncing off of it. So could this be the look inside feature? Once they get to have more understanding of what your book is about, they're not convinced. They're not convinced maybe by the social proof yet on your page. Maybe if you don't have A+ content, do you need to include that? So these are all things you need to ask yourself when you see that. The second is a low click through rate and a high ACOS. Well, this shows that no one is interested. No, your cover isn't worthy enough for people to show interest or to click. So you need to focus on whether you actually are targeting relevant keywords or if it's a cover problem. A high click through rate and a low ACOS is great. You've like hit jackpot there and you have a scalable winner at your hands, and you can ultimately increase budget here and maybe even make a new campaign to include this as your winning keywords. Low CTR and a low ACOS means low impressions. So here would be an opportunity to increase bids. So I know it's not super in depth, but this keeps it as simple as possible, and that's ultimately what you need to do when you're starting out. And I think with time, it's just coming back to this table or maybe screenshotting this table so that you can continue to just understand these metrics, and through repetition, this will become easier for you to know what to look out for you know to where to optimize, and to be optimizing the correct things based on the data you are looking at. um, so I hope that has helped you kind of just understand the world of Amazon ads and how it works differently to traditional ads that maybe you're used to doing, and kind of the key things you need to look out for to ultimately optimize your ads efficiently over time, and so that you can actually be understanding that data and making that data work for you, and then collecting the right data that ultimately will see your book have success for many years to come. And lastly, these are the tools that can help you continue to optimize your ads. So as we said, if it's a high click through rate but a high ACOS, obviously it's a conversion problem. So if it's a conversion problem, is it the reviews? Do you need to go back onto Gemsy? There's also a platform called Book Reverb that costs money to gain reviews. So I know maybe in the beginning, Book Reverb might not be the place for you, but that could be with time. But do you need to go back to Gemsy or to Big Bounty and ultimately see if you need to gather more reviews? Do you need to maybe optimize your cover? So is that something maybe you need to go back to a freelancer or a designer to help you optimize? Do you need to maybe share with a designer the top converting or selling books for your niche, and then share so that they could optimize that for you? Um, and yes, I hope that has helped. I tried to make this as quick as possible and hopefully not too long, and also not too complicated. I think in the beginning, things and Amazon ads can be hard to understand, how they work and ultimately just what the metrics mean. So I hope this has simplified it for you and can enable you to start your Amazon ads journey and for it not to feel too daunting. But if you found any value in this video, I hope that you continue to stick along and hopefully subscribe. And I'll see you in the next video.